Nearly 2 years after the day he had felt himself killed by lightning, and then, impossibly, had lived, the day when Bellegerin rifles had changed the world, Prince Byfault and his company departed Belleger's Fist without announcement or display. Why risk raising hopes, he had asked his father, when success is hardly imaginable? And King Abator had agreed. For that reason, there were no trumpets or banners. The company did not pass outward along an aisle of courtiers. The high balconies of the Fist were empty, apart from the king himself, his most trusted counselors, and his lead commanders. None of them waved or shouted encouragement. Some of them were probably swearing to themselves. But someone had started a rumor. Stolly, an incurable gossip, may have said something to his new wife, who shared his taste for whispered secrets. He had surely felt compelled to give her some explanation to account for an absence that might not end. Or Captain Swallish's family might have overheard a low remark intended for someone else. In any case, the open hand was tinder for rumors. They spread like wildfires. When Prince Byfault left the Fist mounted on his favorite destrier, with his 10 guardsmen, 2 supply wains, and 1 former magister, his road through the hand was lined with crowds. Belleger's people, most of them failing merchants and tradesmen, destitute serving folk and farmers, starving beggars and maimed veterans, knew nothing about the prince's quest. They only knew he would not leave his place at his father's side, or in the army, for any trivial purpose. So they gathered to watch him go. If they guessed he went in search of some nameless power that might save them from Amika, they did not show it. They only watched in silence while he rode between them. For his part, Prince Byfault presented a countenance of resolute confidence. He could not offer hope, but he had no intention of encouraging despair. Shining in his bronze helm and breastplate, both marked with the beleaguered eagle of his homeland, he was the perfect emblem of a soldier who would redeem his people or die. His only concession to a long journey was the silk rather than boiled leather he wore under his armor to avoid chafing. And he had at his back as much support as King Abator could spare. His 10 guardsmen were all veterans, all armed with rifles as well as their more traditional weapons. The wains with their paired oxen carried stores and necessities enough for a season in unfamiliar lands. The oxen were managed by 4 teamsters chosen for strength and stamina, as well as for devotion to their beasts. And the magister with the company was an older man who had once been mighty, but who still knew a trick or 3 that might defend the quest from Amikan theurgy. In addition, the prince himself was far from helpless. His training, experience, and weapons were augmented by a chiseled visage, a piercing gaze, an unyielding nature, and the knowledge that his quest was desperate. Also, he loved his people as he loved his father. His homeland was dear to him. There was no man in Belleger better suited to his task than he. Nevertheless, his air of confidence was a sham. Behind his facade, uncertainties gnawed at him. He had no map to his destination. Indeed, he had no assurance his destination existed. If he found it, it might not have what he needed, and if what he needed were there, he might not be allowed to use it. Furthermore, he knew his limitations. Although he was as resolute as he appeared, he was not clever. He was not a man who outwitted his foes. His skills were hard-learned, the result of long repetition. They were not the product of quick thinking or inspiration. But he had deeper problems as well. The catastrophe that had befallen Belleger had shaken him to the marrow of his bones. It had shattered every conceivable future for his people. And now, he was responsible for answering it. That burden filled him with dread. More than ever before in his life, he feared to fail. The signs of that catastrophe were everywhere around him as he rode. He saw them in the lines of privation that marred every face, in the disrepair of the homes, the merchantries, the streets, the very walls, in the thinness of even the most prosperous shopkeepers. Elsewhere, he knew, grapes rotted on the vines because the vineyards could not be adequately tended, while fields of wheat and barley were useless because there were too few able women and uncrippled men to plant and harvest them. Cattle were becoming as scarce as fresh horses. The panic of the first days, the confusion, clamor, and outrage were gone, burned out by exhaustion and deprivation during the seasons that followed. What remained was hopelessness. Prince Byfalt saw it in scores of faces. His people were afraid to dream of survival. If he failed them, they would all die.